I'd like to call this June 8th, 2023 Board of Education work session to order. George, can you take the roll?
Mrs. Bissell,
Here.
Ms. Cobain,
Here.
Mr. Miko,
Mr. Miko is out of town for work and he's excused.
Ms. Stochek,
Here.
and Mrs. Hausen.
Here. We could all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our district goals remain the same: financial prudence, academic achievement and growth, and community engagement. As a board, we strive to measure all of our decisions against these three goals. Dr. Iba, I'll turn it over to you for recognition.
Thank you, Ms. Hausen. We do have an exciting recognition, one of our Teacher of the Year, to recognize her today. So I'm going to turn it over to our high school principal, Bill Wingler, and from Knights of Columbus, Mr. Bill Burdick. And I know you have another guest with you, Bill, if you want to bring him up with you.
Assistant Chief, retired Chief Brannick, who's our deputy Grand Knight.
Yeah.
All right, good evening, everyone. So, real quickly, I'm just going to say a few words. Alyssa, come up now. Come on up, Alyssa. So, Alyssa Hostler is a math teacher at the high school, and I'm going to very quickly just give a description of why I nominated her. So last year, so at the end of the year, we have EOC scores, end of course scores. We get them for all across the district in multiple grades, multiple subjects. Alyssa is an outstanding Algebra 1 teacher who last year, when she got her scores, although they were very good, she was crying. She was very upset, very driven. And about 2 weeks after she got those scores, Alyssa came to me and said, she posed it in the form of a demand, not a question. I'm going to try this new curriculum, and I want your support. And I said, well, tell me what this is going to look like. And she began to describe to me what this looks like, something called through work with Kim Scott, Mike Scott, the math department chair and the math instructional coach. She began this new teaching, I don't want to say method, but it's unique. If you've ever seen her class, sometimes it looks like a little chaotic, right? Kids are all over the place. They're standing up in groups. They go out. They come back. It's a very student-centered, student-led classroom. And I've been thinking a lot about this because one of the biggest pieces of feedback I get when we talk about how much we want to have student-led classrooms is I can't cover the content. I can't cover everything on this test in a year. There's so much stuff on the state. The state requires so much. And we hear that a lot in education. So Alyssa did something different. She did something totally outside the box, something unique. She took a huge, huge risk, which is what we want people to do. And at the end of the day, from my administrator Hart, Alyssa's test scores were 94% of her students got a proficient or higher score in Algebra 1. The state average is 48%. 65% of her kids got an accelerated or advanced score, which again, the state average is like below 20%. It's significantly an improvement, not only over her scores from last year, but over just everywhere. And this is really significant because when we talk about Model Mustang and we talk about what we want learning to look like, she's already there. She's an example of where we can go as a district. Students run the show in her room, which is really, really makes them invested in their learning. So I have loved seeing her progress this year. She is one of my favorite people in the world because of how hard she works and how much she cares, as evidenced by the tears. So I'm going to let Bill say a few words about her because she was already presented with the plaque, so we don't have it. But I just wanted to kind of describe how we got here. So this is a certificate from the district to Alyssa.
Thanks, Bill. Good evening, everybody. You know, as we look at this is our 7th year of doing this award. You know, when we started our first year with Katie, and then last year with Andy, and then this year with Alyssa and everything, you know, Cameron, you've got a great group of individuals. Jenny, being the human resource, you've got a great group of individuals and everything. And, you know, you look at it, and a thought comes up to me, and it's, you know, we look at the movie Major League and everything. When the manager looks at all the players coming in for spring training, and he puts his arm around the general manager and says, "It's my kind of team, Charlie." Well, with the teachers and everything that are here and what they do, the young rookies, the seasoned veterans and everything, and their excitement in teaching our kids, I look at you, Jenny, I look at you, Cameron, I have to, quote Lou Brown, it is your kind of team and everything. So just seeing, thinking outside the box and everything, because I do that with my own customers, in my line of work, what we try to do is take care and think outside the box what's best for you. And this is a prime example of that. And everybody should be proud of all the teachers and everything, and then especially for Alyssa tonight. So on behalf of the Strongsville Council of the Knights of Columbus, we congratulate you with the Sister Rita Mackert Award. Have a
I just want to say thank you to Bill for nominating me. Thank you to you guys for selecting me. But most importantly, I wouldn't be able to do what I did this year with my students if it weren't for the support of my team, Kim Scott. She is really the driving force behind the Building Thinking Classrooms, which is the approach in which we put into place this year, where the students did take command of the classroom. They took command of their learning. The mathematic that we were piloting, so both of those things together. And Amanda Diedrich, who was part of that team it's been the most magical year, and we have talked so much about that. And so I'm grateful for the support of the administrative team here, and of course the support of Kim and Amanda in doing what we have done. So thank you guys very much.
Congratulations once again, Alyssa, and Bill. And Bill, you both said it well. Alyssa's a phenomenal educator that exemplifies everything we hope and want for our kids. And as the other Bill said, we are blessed to have a wonderful team. And as Alyssa so eloquently said, wouldn't be here without the support of the team. And I just want to also share, Kim Scott is a new position we've had through our ESSER funds of a math coach. So when we talk about coaching and the importance of coaching and how it doesn't matter whether you're a seasoned veteran or a rookie, everybody needs a coach on their side, and that's what we could do when we have people that are doing the work in the classroom each and every day to go support our teachers, to take risks, and to have somebody in their corner. This is the good work that happens. So it doesn't happen in isolation, it happens as a part of a team. So thank you and the department, and Mike Scott, I'll give you a shout out too for leading the department. Appreciate your help as well. So congratulations on a well-deserved recognition. I'll turn it back over to you, Ms. Hausman.
Thank you. Congratulations again. Next is public comment. I don't have any slips. Okay, we will move on. George, turn over to you for treasurer's report.
Thank you, Mrs. Hausum. I have two discussion items for your not consideration, but I have two discussion items tonight for the board. The first one is for food services, and that is typical we do every June. Beginning of this year, we entered into a new 5-year agreement with Chartwell to be our food service provider, and within that 5-year agreement, it's every 1-year renewals, which usually get brought to the board at the second board meeting in June, and at the first board meeting in June, we have representatives from Chartwells that come and speak on how the year went and what's to come for next school year. So I have tonight Will King, and then our food service director, Director of Dining Services, Donna Holland. So they have a presentation. Will Dunn, if you can make your way to the podium.
Good evening. I feel like it's a hard act to follow right there. Very impressive. Well, thank you for having us here tonight. Annually, we do this, we kind of do a recap of the year and how food services went for the year. So we'll just kind of dig right into it. Again, I'm Will King, Area Director for Ohio, and your Food Service Director, Donna Holland. We want to talk about our discussion tonight, just accomplishments over the year, what's coming for next year, some feedback, and we're going to discuss building participation and any questions that you have for us tonight. So really, let's get right into food. I always like to start off with that. I mean, we've really been focusing, Donna, on some just wholesome, fresh selections. These are all pictures of actual food that we've been serving this year. You can see fresh homemade salads. That up top in the top right-hand corner is hummus with fresh pita, fresh vegetables. Pizzas are made from scratch, so homemade pizzas. Down bottom corner is like a black bean corn salsa. Donna's also been doing a lot of catering, so there's a nice catering of fruit salad. So just things that we want to talk about is we're really focusing on scratch and batch cooking, trying to make sure throughout the day, some districts will cook all their food in the morning, then you serve it all day. We're trying to focus on making sure we're cooking throughout the day to protect the freshness and the quality of the food. And then also making sure we're giving plenty of selections for the students to choose from. And then NutriSlice is our mobile app that parents can go on. They can view the menus online, so either online, on their phone, and that way they can make those choices daily if they want their students. So some students may be picky, may not want that item for the day, so they can choose to either eat in school or pack. And I'm going to let Donna talk a little bit about this next slide.
So we've been trying to do some events throughout the year that appreciate our staff. We did, as part of a uniform purchase, we did the T-shirts in your bottom left. And it's a custom T-shirt for dining services that says, "We feed the Stampede." And they love the shirts. They wear them often. Been working with the parent-teacher organizations. Most recently, we helped out with the carnival over at Maraski. We cooked and wrapped for them 320 hot dogs. And that does take about 2 hours, if anybody is curious, to cook and wrap about 320 hot dogs. We do have new steamers. I know we've made a big deal about that. That's really a good thing. We've been, the managers are reporting that students who did not eat vegetables prior to the steamers are now eating vegetables. And the carrots are more orange, the broccoli is greener. It's all around better and tastier. Also some caterings that I've been doing for here in the building, and also for PTA organizations, PTO organizations, and the building principals. The cake over there, we just most recently celebrated Lunch Hero Day, which is a national day where we recognize food service workers. And so everyone's really, really surprised about that. And then Discovery Kitchens. We started up our Discovery Kitchens in February. This year started, we had all the supply chain issues last year, and so when we started the new school year in August of '22, the supply chain issues did not magically go away. So there were still a lot of things that we were dealing with at the beginning of the school year that sort of now have worked around December, January, sort of worked themselves out. So we were able to start Discovery Kitchens in February, and we were doing Lucky Trays. Also, the kids love the Lucky Trays. These are some of the pictures. I want to give a shout out to Dan Faust, who I notify when we're having a Discovery Kitchen. And if he can, he'll come over and take pictures, and he has the best eye. He gets the best reactions from the kids, lots of cute smiles. So thanks to Dan for that. And also we ran, I think for the first time in this district that it's been done, we ran green eggs and ham in honor of Dr. Seuss's birthday back in early March. And the kids loved it. It was one of our better participation days in the district.
The eggs are green.
The eggs are actually green. And I had managers, kind of looking at me funny and say, "You want me to color the eggs green?" I said, yes.
Donna, what is Lucky Trays Day?
Lucky Tray Day is, it's a method to build participation, and we give a little tchotchke. Kids come through the line, the kids who buy, and certain trays, they're marked, or every
Okay.
fifth tray or something, they get a little tchotchke.
Gotcha.
Sometimes it's a temporary tattoo or, something like
Yeah.
that. Are you up next?
Yeah, talk about chat back. Really focusing on feedback and how to get live feedback, immediate feedback. That's what we're focusing on. So Chatback is a new tool we're going to be introducing next year where students can go on their cell phone, they can send a message, and it'll go straight to Donna. It'll go to her email, and then that gives her the opportunity to reply back. So it's for good feedback, negative feedback, opportunities, whatever it may be. If, hey, we ran out of pizza today and I really want pizza, well, she'll be able to get that immediately, and then she'll be able to address it. So we're just trying to really focus on how can we get more feedback and make it easier for the students to give it to us. So focusing on student feedback, Chatback, student surveys, student focus groups, and principal scorecards. So what we did this year was we gave all the principals a survey and a scorecard for just to kind of give us some opportunity, what they think about our overall rating, the menus, the director's response, the cafe manager, and the staff. And this is an average of all the principals' responses. It was a 1 through 5 survey, so just kind of an easy grading. We saw that our opportunity still came in at a 4, was menus. So we addressed that, and Donna's been working. We'll talk a little bit more in the presentation about what we're doing on menus. But overall, all of our ratings came in a pretty decent response, over 4%. And we'll continue to do those annually. These, on NutriSlice, students can give feedback as well on products, so they can go in there, leave comments. That's another way for Donna to get feedback. These are just, they're kind of goofy, but these are some of the comments that the students left for us. Like, it's a very good, best pizza I've ever had. I like real chili with grated cheese. But anyway, it's lots of comments that Donna can go through and sort through to see how the students are reacting to the program. And then I'm going to turn it back to Donna to talk about building participation and getting into the menus.
So some of the things we're doing for next year, I'm really excited about next year, is at the elementary level, at all levels actually, we're introducing smoothies, but we tried them out on a trial basis at Whitney and Sarar, and just for a short time at Muraski. But at Whitney, we found when we offered the smoothies, we increased our breakfast participation on those days by 60%. Kids love the smoothies. And this is, we're going to advance a slide here and let you know, the days that are in the pinkish purple color are the days that we serve the smoothies. Those are our counts, and the days, obviously, without the color or without the smoothies. But we found, really interesting, is that even once we started selling the smoothies for breakfast, offering the smoothies for breakfast, that even on the days that we weren't serving smoothies, the breakfast count stayed up a little bit. So I think the smoothies are getting students interested in breakfast. You want to go back? So we're going to be doing smoothies at the secondary level as well. The issue with the smoothies was we didn't have blenders, and so before we made an investment in the blenders, I wanted to make sure that the smoothies weren't just going to be popular for a week or two before we did that. And the kids love them, so we are going to be buying blenders for smoothies next year. We have new and exciting recipes. One is that we are adding a Sono bar, which is a Latin-inspired sort of hot well cafe bar at the high school. On the days that we serve Mexican food, the line's out the door. So why not offer some type of Mexican, mix it up, offer some type of Mexican every day? And so we'll be moving, we have a hot well, we're moving over to the high school. It's going to become our new Sono bar, and we're going to be having like Cuban sandwiches and tacos and nachos and maybe some kind of pulled pork on there as well. It's going to be fun. And then new concepts, Will can talk more about this, but Chartwell's is coming out with something called Global Eats. I'll just leave that with you, and he can pick that up a little bit. New equipment, we already talked about the blenders. We got the steamers. We're going to introduce blenders here shortly. Staff trainings. I like to do a large training every year. Last year we did Person in Charge, which was from the Board of Health, and nearly all of our employees took part in that and were certified PIC, or Person in Charge certified. This year we did the Stop the Bleed, and then next year we're doing something, this coming year, doing something called Fair Check, which is an allergy training. And if 90% of our employees can get that training, can take that training, then our district will become a Fair Check certified district, which is a feather in our cap. And then ServSafe certifications. We're having a big push now for all of our employees to go and get ServSafe certified, which is the training by the Board of Health, sort of the state-of-the-art training by the Board of Health for cafeteria workers, kitchen workers. And we had 7 go through this year. We had a few go through last year. I think right about now we're at about 50% of our employees are ServSafe certified. We would like to be at 100%, And the reason for that being is the ServSafe certification expires after 5 years. There is a monetary investment when you send someone out to be trained. And so we'd like to have all of our employees trained. And then the woman that you saw wearing the Stampede t-shirt is a certified trainer by the Board of Health. And so at that point, we can then keep our trainings in-house, and at that point will be a cost savings to the district.
Talk a little bit more about your menus and based on your data.
Oh, yeah. So the elementary, I kept data this year on mainly the elementary menus, or the elementary participation, because that's lower than what everyone would like it to be. And so when I made the menus this year, I used the data for the coming year, I used the data from this year. And so what I did is all the days that we served pizza last year, I just took an average of the participation for those days, took an average of the participation for lasagna, for chicken nuggets, and it turns out pizzas are by far our most favorited item in the district at all levels. At the elementary, we serve about 900, a little over 900 meals when we serve pizza, versus lasagna, which surprised me, which is the lowest of all the meals that we offered, and it was just about 500 meals when we serve lasagna. Kids just don't really like lasagna. So when I made the menu this coming year, for this year, I tried to stay in about the top 60, 65% of their favorite items. And I'm hoping that will give us a boost in our participation next year for offering more of the items that they want to eat.
So continue to talk about participation. This is 3 years of data, 3 different years. It's got pre-COVID, which is 2019 in the blue column, 2021, which is during COVID in the red, and then current 2023. So as you can see with the lunch participation, comparing 2019 to current, so the blue and the yellow columns there, we're a little up in lunch. So that's apples to apples. That's your free, reduced, and paid lunches. So we've seen an uptick there. The red, of course, is up because of everything was free. So there's going to be a big spike there. Same with breakfast. Comparing to pre-COVID and current, we're slightly down or flat in breakfast. But then, of course, we had a huge uptick during COVID. And the reason before that, because that was because of non-congregate and congregate feeding. We were able to hand out breakfast, lunch. All we had to do was take a tally, and we could turn that in for reimbursements. Now students have to go through, they have to put in their ID, they have to go through the point of sale system. So that really kind of took away our advantage to be able to hand out as many meals as quickly as we did. And then a la carte sales, you'll see actually took a dip where breakfast and lunch was up during COVID, a la carte sales were down. That's because everybody was having free meals, so they spent less in a la carte, where you may go in, just buy a piece of pizza, you weren't doing that, you were just getting the free meal. So a la carte sales are back up, and they're just, again, slight tick under where we were pre-COVID. So we're focusing on making sure that we can know where our opportunities lie and trying to get that participation number up for next year. And we talked about smoothies. And Donna already talked about Sono. I just thought I'd talk a little bit more about Global Eats. We're going to run Global Eats. It's a new program at Chartwells. We're going to run this October, November, December, and January of next year. And we're going to focus on menus based around a different country. So we're going to do China, Italy, India, and Mexico. So it should be kind of a fun. We got lots of marketing and signage to go around it, lots of new menus. So we'll roll that out come October. And that is all we have tonight. So be happy to take any questions if there's any.
Will the Global Eats be at all buildings?
That's going to be more secondary.
Okay.
Yeah.
Middle school and high school?
Middle school and high school, yeah. Yeah. Just because it's multiple options and the menus are geared more toward secondary.
Got you. Is there any way to do the taco bar at the middle school and the high school? I know you said you're going to do it at the high school.
Right. I added a second taco day. Every other week, there's 2 Mexican days at the middle school, because it's also a favorite
Yeah.
there as well.
Yeah.
And right now, with the way that we'd have to rearrange the servery if we added another bar.
Okay.
I don't know if there's room for that.
I mean, we can look at that. It's just sometimes it's a matter of the equipment that we have, if we can do that concept or not.
Right, right. Thank you.
Yeah.
You gave a couple examples of the broccoli and the carrots, but what other kinds of things are you using the steamers for, and does that vary from level to level?
We use the steamers, as I mentioned, we cook the hot dogs in the steamers. When I first got here, and everyone was free on, during the free years, we were cooking 350 hot dogs by boiling them on top of the stove, like our grandmothers, great-grandmothers did. It took all day. all morning. And so now with the steamers, we can cook, hot dogs come in 80 pack, we can cook that probably in 15 minutes in the steamer. And so it cuts down the, so if you're not spending time cooking or watching a part, you can do other things. We cook all of our vegetables in the steamer. We can cook anything that doesn't need to be browned can go in the steamer. We can, like the hamburgers we buy, we can steam those as well.
They'll do your rice and beans for
Rice
the,
and beans,
yeah,
yeah.
for the Sono Bar. Steamers are really
Pasta.
kind of a staple item in school districts. It protects quality of the food, and it also preserves nutrients. So if you were to boil a vegetable versus steaming a vegetable, you're going to maintain most of the nutrients versus steaming it.
We can hard-boil eggs in the steamer as well.
Yeah, they're pretty versatile.
You shared some of the feedback from the principals. Do you have any feedback from parents that you could share with us?
I don't have any parent feedback. I mean, some of that NutriSlice may be parent feedback. We don't know where the feedback's coming from, so looks like student feedback because they're saying things about the food, but.
Right, some of
yeah.
the language would suggest.
Yeah,
it's
yes, it would.
Are you done, Michelle?
Go ahead.
I didn't want to.
Yeah.
This is very insignificant. This isn't really about the food you serve, but I have had complaints that kids have packed lunches and they come to school and they forget a spoon or a fork. I mean, I've got multiple requests for this, and they've asked at the counter to please have a spoon or a fork, and they're not allowed to have one. So one little girl ended up eating her yogurt with her hands. So I don't know who pays for that or if we can add that in, but if you want parents to like you, you probably should give them
Yeah.
a spoon or a fork
That-
when they
that
like,
is-
ask for one.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you for.
I'm not condemning you, it's probably like your policy, but I.
It's not
but I
our
have-
policy, yeah. So we'll make, sure- I think it's a
don't
training
know why,
opportunity.
But
Yeah.
when it comes from more than one person, then you know it's probably pretty reliable that
Yeah.
they've been in that situation,
Thank you.
so.
We'll discuss that at our back to the meeting, or back to school meeting.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank
Sorry
you.
about that, yeah.
Did anyone have anything else? Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you for having us, we appreciate it.
Thank you, Donna. Thank you, Will.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks. And then, as mentioned, at the next board meeting, we'll have the annual renewal on the agenda for your consideration. The next item I have is the athletic department funding follow-up discussion. And I'm going to ask our athletic director, Denny Ziegler, and our assistant athletic director, and also the athletic director for the middle school, Jason Kepler, to come up to the podium as well. This is a follow-up discussion based on the April 6th meeting. We had presented proposing that the athletic budget to be increased to cover the basic needs of athletics, as we determined a chart of what we determined as basic needs, and whether items should be district funded, support group funded, or student funded. Rather, having them coming into the budget versus some of those items currently are either provided by support organizations or student fundraise, and letting support organization and fundraise dollars be used for supplemental items that would supplement the athletic program versus supplement the athletic programs and providing, enhancing the student experience versus providing basic needs just to be able to play the activities that they're playing. After that presentation, there were some follow-up items that came from the presentation, and those items we're going to cover tonight. So it was break out the new asks that impact the budget the most for high school asks, middle school asks, survey peer schools to help determine what other districts consider fundamental and funded by the district. So we surveyed results, and then we also have a peer school budget comparison to our budget. We were asked to brainstorm new revenue streams, which came up with a few ideas that we can kind of go over, and then we were asked to, the proposal that we had a 5-year forecast. We were asked to take it another 5 years to 10 years. So we have that data as well. So now I'm going to turn it over to Athletic Director Denny Ziegler to cover the high school new asks.
All right. So the follow-up conversation was, what are our new asks for the high school? So besides the uniform portion, which I think we covered quite in depth last meeting, the coaches clinics, this is something that we would like coaches to go to. A lot of coaches pay their own way to, to go to coaches clinics to develop their staff, their skills as a coach, as a leader for our young students. So, with all of our sports teams that we offer, from a freshman level on up to a varsity level, and some of our younger coaches that maybe are just coming into coaching, who we want to maybe mentor to eventually take over as a head coach someday, it's something that, that can benefit them. Right now, they currently pay for that either on their own or through their team funds through the booster. The new tech is just for our online ticketing software. Cracked screens happen with the weather that we have. Not every single venue that we operate in has covering. So our iPads, our scanners are always exposed to the elements of wind, rain, snow, sleet. So sometimes that has to be replaced, and we don't necessarily have that cost to replace it right now. The huddle video, that is something that we currently pay a portion of. Our total huddle package, and that's our online video system for our teams. There's a conference bylaw that says all sports have to have huddle in order to exchange game film with our opponents. The low end of it for all sports is about $13,000. So right now, I cover 3 out of my budget. The athletic boosters, I think, cover $2,500, and then the rest is covered out of team funds. So if that's a necessity that our conference is saying we have to have in order to exchange film, it's something that we feel should be necessary from the district to make that happen for our teams. When you look at impact, that is a safety and a concussion protocol that currently our athletic boosters covers at the high school. Our middle school budget covers the middle school. That's always based off of per test. So I think we get, don't quote me, I think it's like 300 or 400 free tests per year. When we go above that, then we have to pay for that. So right now, the athletic trainers approach the boosters to cover that for the high school. And what that is that's a test that is given to high school athletes as well as middle school athletes. That's a baseline. So if a student ends up getting some sort of concussion, they give them this impact test, and it measures where they were when they were perfectly normal and then where they're at after some sort of injury that occurs to the head. And those tests are given regularly. Every major sport has those, and then they are given based off of students that do have any sort of concussion injury. They are retaking that test to see what their baseline is after that injury. The staff uniforms, that's just like a Block S or the Mustang logo, embroidered on staff polos, staff T-shirts, some staff giveaways that we give away for PBIS. So that's what that is. The travel, that is more of for us going to state level conferences, spring conferences, fall conferences, with our involvement with some national conferences, that is going to some national conferences. That's also in for our trainers. So our trainers travel with our teams to every state tournament. So whether it's away state tournament game to Avon, if it's to the state finals down in Columbus, our trainers get mileage. That also takes care of all of the conferences that we go to with our mileage as well. Equipment repairs, that's something that we've never had. And kind of what we classify that as is last spring, our scoreboard in the football stadium was making a humming sound during every single lacrosse game. So we had to go in and found out that it was a bad control panel that we had to replace. I think it cost us $750 to replace. That was something that we never planned on, never had it budgeted. That also would be a backboard pad tears during a basketball game, it's us, so it's that kind of replacement that we have to have. Lacrosse nets tear during the spring with the weather, our basketball nets rip, tear, so all those different equipment repairs go into that. A uniform filler would be just, if there's uniforms that get blood, ripped, torn during the year, this is just a replacement filler for that individual sport that might need one or two for that season just to get by. So, if there's a blood injury or something like that, it's easy to replace. And then the wrestling software is a software that tracks stats for wrestling, but also allows video. And they've been paying that out of their own team account right now. That is different than Huddle, but it is wrestling specific. And so they use a program that's called MapBoss for that. Then on the right-hand side, it's looking at some of the other costs that we are going to incur as we look forward. And these are really just incurred because of inflation and or because of, our numbers increasing. The biggest one is officials' pay is going up 10% starting next year, and then 2 years after, it's going up another 10%. And that's for every sport. And so when you look at every sport, every level, and for football, we're the only conference that is having an extra official for varsity games. Our tournament entries for golf, swimming, cross country, gymnastics, track, all those seem to be going up. And so if we're sending boys as well as girls teams to those different events, that's an added cost that we're going to incur. The sports equipment, I think I touched on last time, a game ball, prior to COVID for football was around $60. It's upwards of almost $94 right now. So when you incur practice balls, game balls, for football, soccer, volleyball, baseball, softball, whatever the other sports are that we need, those costs are all rising. And then because of some transportation issues with our conference, we're having to play multiple games at the same time, so that is increasing our game workers. So for volleyball, for instance, we are using our back gym for our freshman game while our JV team is playing at the exact same time. That's probably going to occur more with basketball, and with a lot of Title IX things coming down. If we're doing more boys and girls doubleheaders for basketball, that's going to increase our game workers just because of the use of both gyms. So I'll turn it over to Jason for middle school.
Before we go to the next slide for Jason, is there any questions for Denny on high school?
Yeah, I was just wondering, will all the coaches be required to do the coaches' clinics? Will that become part of their job description?
Yeah, yes.
Okay.
So right now, we get asked a lot about, hey, I want to go to this. Is this something that the school can fund? And the answer has always been no. Because as soon as I do it for one sport, there's going to be 20 other sports that want it. So if they don't do it on their own right now or don't use their team funds through their team account, then they don't go. A thing that I have talked to our coaches about is not only for more PD, but also as a revenue, is lets us host a coaches clinic and invite outside coaches to come and clinic here, invite high schools to come in, and we can do our clinic right here, and we can make the money here. So that's an idea that I know I've spoken with football as well as the basketball coaches on, that they're really, really interested in.
That sounds great. When you talk about team money, is that like fundraised money by each individual
yes.
team? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, and Huddle, that's a.
Ms. Hausen?
Yeah.
And currently, that's what, their team accounts are currently with the boosters.
Yes.
So-
And the impact, that's a requirement, right? I mean, concussions, okay.
Mhm.
And the Huddle, that's a requirement.
Yes.
That we have to have that. Okay, that's all.
To the Huddle, while we're on that, are there certain teams that use that more than others, or is it pretty much across the board?
There are certain teams that do use it more. So right now, for us, we pay the basic. So if a team wants more, I mean, they have this Huddle Assist, which if our coaches send them game film, they will essentially break it down and send it back to us as a scouting film, and that's a 24-hour turnaround, but that's an extra cost that the teams pay for right now. There's also some other features, like a sideline feature that like football uses. So as a game is being played, they can go on the sideline and rewatch the last plays that happened on a sideline TV that they have, and that's a cost that they do right now too. I do have a meeting set up with Huddle TV on Monday in works of trying to get some sort of paid subscription for a live stream that also uses Huddle.
So we pay, well, the ask is for the base, and then the teams would still be required to, if they want another feature, they
If they
would
want- yes.
still pick that up.
Right.
Thank you.
And all of these things have come from the boosters, is that, am I correct? Or is it budget, or
A lot of them have, a lot of them we've had to fundraise through the athletic department for, or use some sort of, donations that have gotten. So like the impact test, that's all been from the boosters. The equipment repairs, if that's something that we needed, then we've had to go out and try to find a way to raise the money to get that taken care of. A lot of this stuff, we have asked Steve Breckner through the facilities to help, which has also helped. But as far as like the uniforms, the coaches clinic, all that has been through the boosters, yes.
Any other questions for Denny, or move on to middle school? All right, Jason, middle school.
Thanks, George. So this slide is very similar to the high school. We have a lot of similar new expense asks, and 4 of them are highlighted there. Team uniforms, of course, coaches clinics, just like the high school. We have new tech and tech repairs. Our ticket gate for football is outside. They're out in the elements, and that stuff is in need of some repair, and then equipment repairs. Our scoreboard at the football field has one controller, and it sometimes has connectivity issues. So if you get too far away from it, it starts glitching out, and we have to make sure our scoreboard operator is like right next to it. So those are just some of the things that we're asking for. Looking a little bit more specifically at the increased expenses due to inflation or participation, Denny highlighted a bunch of that. I'm just going to provide a little snapshot of some things at the middle school level, looking at entry fees specifically. So 2 years ago, our entry fees for the GCC was, I think, about $2,200. Last year, it was well over $4,000. Next year, it's going to be close to $5,000. And that is just a snapshot of what it costs to do business in well, really just anywhere. Everything costs so much more money these days than it did 2 years ago. So going through that list, we have the same equipment issues where stuff's costing so much more now than it did just a couple of years ago. And looking more specifically at the participation expense-related issues, George, if you want to click on that link up there.
The increased participation?
Mm-hmm. So looking at what our participation has done over the last handful of years, this starts in 17 and goes through this past school year and has some projections going into next school year. So from 20 into 21, we had almost a 9% increase in participation. The next year after that, we had a 6% increase, and then we're anticipating another 6% increase going into next year. And that estimate is based on current fall numbers and then our conservative estimates for winter and spring. So why are we getting these increases? One thing that's happened is the board has graciously allowed us to bring some more teams back to the middle school, which is great. We're getting so many more kids to get involved, but we're also scheduling more games, ordering more equipment, so there's expenses related to that. And then on top of the stuff that we've added new, we're seeing huge increases in football and track. Just in middle school track alone, last year compared to this year, we had 55 new kids. We had almost 220 kids running track. It was pretty amazing and scary at the same time. But and then football last year, we had I think a total of 21 by the time the season ended between high school and middle school of new athletes. And just to give you another snapshot of what this is doing to us on the expense end, looking at a football helmet. So we didn't have football helmets for these students, and we've had to buy new ones. A high school football helmet is getting up close to $600. A middle school one's close to $250. And that's much more than what it was even last year. And then on top of that, all of our helmets have a shelf life. They're good for 10 years, and then you have to get rid of them. And this rule went into place about 12 years ago, so when we bought new helmets at that point in time, those are starting to expire. So every year, we're getting anywhere from 10 to 20 to 25 helmets expire, and that's on top of what we have to buy for the new students, so.
Question, knowing nothing about football or helmets, what's the difference between the middle school helmet and the high school helmet with the price?
The middle school helmets are youth sizes,
Oh.
and they're rated a little bit differently, and then the high schools, of course, the adult size.
And Jason, too, with, correct me if I'm wrong, with the helmets for both middle school and high school, every year we have to send them out to be reconditioned.
Right.
And that reconditioned is a per helmet charge, and every helmet has to go to get reconditioned, and it's essentially a safety check. It's a safety check, and they inspect it and make any necessary repairs to it and get it prepped for next season. So as more kids are participating, more helmets we have, those costs are increasing as well.
And then even on top of that, looking at our football teams this school year, I think we're going to have close to 60 eighth graders and 70 to 80 seventh graders, and that's one football team with 22 positions on the field. So what we've had to do to get these kids ample playing time is schedule B games. So they have their regular conference schedule, and then we schedule each week an additional game. But what that does is we have to pay 4 additional referees each week, and then extra game workers and scoreboard workers. So the expense on these things related to participation is going through the roof as well. So thanks, George. That is really all I had on that slide. If you guys had any questions specifically about those, okay. Okay, another thing we were asked to do was survey some of our peer schools to see what they determine a basic need for their athletic programs and what they also pay for. So we reached out to a bunch of different schools. We got responses from 11 of them, and the data that we collected from there it's a lot. And we're going to pull up that sheet here in a minute, and I promise you're going to get dizzy. There's so much on there. So I tried to take that information and make it as simple as possible and put it on this slide. And this slide has 3 different categories. First one being, what does Strongsville City Schools not pay for that other schools do? And then on the other way around, what do we pay for that other schools don't? And then the last column there kind of expands on our last 2 slides that what we're asking the district to pay for that they haven't in the past. And Denny and I, we went through the last slides. I can go over those just here real briefly. So from game jerseys to clinics to testing, equipment, paying for rental facilities and state tournament, busing in hotels and things like that, and then of course Huddle at the bottom there. George, if you want to click on that details part, and Board, if you want to put on your sunglasses, this is going to get a little crazy. All right, so there's a lot going on here. At the very top, you'll see all the respondents up there. There were 11 different schools that we got to respond to this survey. And in column A, all the way down, you'll see all of the line items. Those items are what is paid for either by the district or someone else for the athletic department throughout the course of a year. The next column you see, that column B, explains what or who pays for that, whether it's the district, support group, or student. And then there's 2 things going on in these last couple of cells here. Wherever you see a check mark, whether it be a gray check mark or a red check mark, that is what we are asking, that's what we're asking, that's what we're requesting. So check marks in that first column there, or column C, we're asking the district to pick that expense up. Where you see the red, that is the results of our survey. So the red is the majority of our respondents. So 11 people responded. In most of these cases, if you see red in that cell, that means at least 6 of them responded that's how it's funded. You might see a couple where there's some cells that are highlighted twice on a line item, and that's because a school, for whatever reason, abstained from putting any info there, and we had 5 votes apiece or 4 votes apiece or survey results apiece on those ones. I don't have a whole lot to add to that. We can go through this line by line if you like, or, but yeah, that's all I had with the survey results.
We
Yes.
got that.
Okay.
You got it.
I think you have consensus that you don't have to.
I like
Okay.
your other slide.
So
Yeah.
Jason,
Yeah.
get
See,
with
that's-
this.
That's my way.
See,
of
I felt like
looking at
last
it.
time we had all this information to throw at you, and I'm like, man, like, when we're putting it together, it was like, this makes sense to us, but maybe not so much to everyone else. So we wanted to make it a little bit more easier to look at, a little more,
You did a good
yeah.
job.
Okay, thanks.
What I will add is, this stems from our basic needs chart for where we determined whether it should be district funded, support group funded, or student funded. And then from there, we took in, we looked at how other districts are funding it, what the majority is. And the clean version of this is what we're going to use as a foundation to determine the athletic budgets from year to year, versus not as a specific dollar amount, but what does it cost to fund these individual items? So if we said these are basic needs, as we go through their budget and we develop their budget annually is, all right, we said we're going to fund these items, so what's our estimates on what these items are going to cost? So that's kind of what we're using as the foundation of the athletic budget, is what is basic needs and how much do those cost?
Okay.
The next slide is, we were asked, what peer schools fund their athletics and what's the budget comparables. So same thing, we were able to survey peer districts, and these are the ones that responded. For Strongsville, with middle school, our total athletic budget is mainly based on ticket revenue with entry fees and cash carryover. It's budgeted about $193,000. I will add, this doesn't include the items that's funded for by the general fund, which includes the ice rink for hockey, the trainers, the rental of the gymnastics studio, and the rental of indoor baseball and softball facility for our baseball and softball programs. And the reason why we didn't include those items was just to have an apples-to-apples comparison to other districts. Some of these schools do not have hockey, so they're not paying for that rental fee. They're also not paying for gymnastics rental either. They have it at their facility as well. So just to get an apples-to-apples comparison is, we didn't include that in our budget, but as you'll see down the list, we're, in comparison to our size, we are a little bit on the lower end. Some districts have their pay-to-play go into their athletic budget. 3 schools in the GCC, our current conference, Mentor, Brunswick, Medina, have larger budgets than we do. And then North Royalton, which is a neighboring district, I believe smaller district, has a higher athletic budget. And then same thing with Brecksville, Broadview Heights. So overall, Strongsville ranked 11 out of 13 in total athletic budget. 9 out of the 12 schools received a general fund transfer. Based on proximity to the 3 closest districts, Brunswick, Berea, and North Royalton receive an average of $86,000 from the general fund. And as stated, 3 other GCC respondents have budgets over $300,000.
I have a question.
Yeah.
On the last one, what peer school funds budget comps, where it says sponsorships for Berea, is that like corporate sponsorships where they would then advertise? And is that something that we do in our district?
We do. Denny, do you want to touch on what you have at the? It's a combination. Denny has a few sponsorships, and then also with a partnership with the Booster Club, they seek out partnerships as well, or sponsorships, which goes to money they generate as well, which we let them use their space.
Is it allowed to do like where they would advertise like on the backboard of like different sizes costing different amount of money and?
Yeah, so probably about 3 or 4 years ago, maybe even longer than that, I worked with the Booster Club to revamp our sponsorship program. And kind of what we have found is that a lot of our teams were going out to local businesses and asking every single season, multiple teams, multiple sports, asking for some sort of donation sponsorship. So what we decided to do is bring all those together and say, hey, as a local business sponsor, you can now be involved in all of the programs, and you get to be on our scoreboard as a sponsor for our Night at the Races, our golf outing. So it really incorporates a lot more for those businesses that want to be involved. And not only now is that one team or one sport benefiting, it's the entire athletic department
Right.
benefiting for.
Right.
For us, a lot of donations just come from our website. So our website company, VNN, actually seeks out sponsors, and then we get a check, every year from those. It's anywhere from $1,500 to $2,500 that we use towards, if there's things that we need to fund athletically, that's what we use that for. But a lot of the sponsorship as well as donation monies are all tied up through the athletic boosters.
And George, our pay-to-play, that goes, where does our pay-to-play money
So-
go that we collect?
So our pay-to-play goes into the general fund. It's been going in there since the inception of the pay-to-play. I don't know when it went, prior to me being here, it's been a while since we've been having the pay-to-play, but it's been going in the general fund, which goes to offset salaries.
And about, how much money does that generate?
This year, we had about 225,000 between middle school and high school
From pay to play?
from pay-to-play.
And then that money goes to,
It goes to general fund to offset the salary for the coaches.
Is it a conflict of interest if like a business wanted to donate practice jerseys and put their logo on it?
Practice jerseys, no. Game jerseys, yes.
Like what if they did practice jerseys? I'm gonna throw
Sure.
one, Serpentini or something like that. Like what if they wanted to pay for stuff? Like, do we give that option for that to happen or?
We've never really asked. I believe football is getting all of their practice jerseys donated with the sponsor this year. It just can't be put on a game jersey per
That's what I was thinking, like
state.
practice
Yeah.
jerseys that they need.
How many teams do we have, though, that really have practice jerseys besides the football team?
Basketball, football, lacrosse are really the
The bigger
only
ones.
what hockey sometimes does. A lot of them just use those pennies that are
Yeah.
just reversible, yellow, white, green.
Okay. Trying to be creative. I figure with the Business Advisory Council, we have so many local businesses that are interested in getting involved and helping and whatnot with the kids that, and a lot of it was like, what's the advertisement in it? What do we get out of it? So, I mean, there's already so many people that are generously donating their time without anything that I wonder what would happen if it was like, hey, we'll put this sign in front of the school, so every kid that drives up, or every parent that drives up will see it.
Be items we could explore.
Yeah.
Yeah. Certainly you can put sponsorships on like game balls for football
Yeah.
and things like that, yes. Yeah.
I'm sure the boosters have thought about that, like, for years, to get all this money. Maybe so.
This slide, we were asked at the last meeting about, we were talking about the expenses without much focus on the revenue, so we were asked to come up with some potential revenue streams. These are some items that we came up with. If the board has any interest in entertaining any of these, we can come back to these, or they're just ideas.
I will mention one thing. So the ticket price, that is a for sure with our conference that was voted on just a couple weeks ago. It is going to go to a flat rate of $8 for all varsity games, level games. 2 hours before varsity home football and varsity home basketball, that price is going to be $10 at the gate. And then any lower level game that's tied to a varsity game is going to be an $8 flat fee. Standalone games, I believe, are going to stay at $5. Middle school is going to a flat rate of $5. What we had found out is through our ticketing, a lot of our peer schools were seeing 300-plus student tickets being bought, and there was only 15 students showing up, so adults were purchasing student tickets for a lower rate, which is why we wanted to go to a flat rate, which a lot of conferences are going to now. So there's none of that.
So everyone would be the same, then kids and adults?
Yeah, we have the ability for home games to pre-sale student tickets
Right.
at a lower price.
Football parking, student valeted football parking.
Seems like a liability.
I think Healer should join the boosters.
As a parent of young drivers,
Driving lessons
At the same time, Strong's City School's driving lessons.
Probably not even the best idea, but.
I think
Cameron will
Haley's
sit in the
volunteering to
passenger
give
seat.
That's
right.
Fine.
Are boosters still paying for the students besides the basketball and the football games? Is that still? Okay. Okay, thank you.
I will make a suggestion for the football parking. If we don't do it for our own home games, and you're shaking your head no, but where I'm going with it is for, if we host OSHA playoff games, there's an opportunity there to.
Right. George, I
we're-
only shake
we're-
my head
we're a
because I
neutral-
rode my
we're-
bike around a lot.
Buy all the tickets and scalp them.
We're a neutral site, so it wouldn't be our teams
Right.
being affected.
Right.
I
And we
think
did do
is-
that. We have done that in the past.
Yeah, and I think that is common. Denny, is that common with
Mhm.
other
Yeah.
playoff sites? So
Yeah,
that might
we can
be
charge up to
something-
$5 per car.
Something we explore
Mm-hmm.
and do that as a potential ways to bring in more money for the athletic department.
If you need any tips, let me know.
Bidding on parking spots.
I hate to raise the participation fee, though. I really don't want to do that. I mean, that's just my opinion.
Is the participation fee for anything that you have to pay to play the same across the board or within the same bracket of paying in terms of,
So.
like
our-
everyone would pay $25 more? No matter
Yes.
what it is?
Yes.
Yeah, so currently ours is, and this is comparison to other districts that we were able to get information on. Ours is $200 for high school pay-to-play. Middle school's $100 with a $600 family cap. So if you have two students, they play 3 sports, you're paying $600 total.
And it doesn't matter whether they have to buy their own equipment or their own stuff, like the baseball helmets they have to pay for, but, okay,
Yeah. Yeah, this is just to be on the roster.
gotcha.
This one was eye-opening to me, to see what the other districts were doing around us. There really
there
is
a
no
lot?
common theme in it.
Yeah.
No.
Is there a lot of pay-to-play? I read the one thing, but did you guys check into that? Do they do a lot of other area schools pay-to-play?
Yeah, so like Brecksville does it per sport. So their fees are different per sport. So like if you play
Okay.
football, it might be 150. If you play basketball, it might be 330.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know what their rationale is for charging per sport, but they do it per sport. There's a lot of districts that will charge a flat fee and say, hey, we encourage you to play as many sports as you possibly want, but the flat fee is $300.
Okay.
How does Royalton do the one-time fee? Is it one time as in annually and you could play
Mhm.
one everything?
Mhm.
And is Brunswick the only one that does the federal lunch, one free sport?
That's the first that I've heard of
Oh,
it,
I've
yes,
seen it before.
from a district.
I actually really like that.
Who funds that free sport? Or is it not funded? It's
It would
just-
be covered by the district,
just
I'm
covered by-
assuming.
All right. Any questions on, or any other items you want us to explore on?
I have a question, but it's not for, am I allowed to ask an audience member a question?
Phone a friend.
Yeah, I am.
Absolutely.
Would you like her to approach the podium? Yeah, if you could, can you, and I know you already spoke once, but can you remind me of what like the vision or mission statement is of your organization? Correct.
Yeah, absolutely. It's, and hi, everybody, I'm
Rick.
Rick will valet cars.
All right, good evening. I'm Rick Schultz, the president of the Strongsville Athletic Boosters, and yes, I mean, our vision, it's all about the student-athlete experience and making sure that, we provide, it's in first-class, premier, outstanding student-athlete experience, and that's through whether it's assets that we've acquired. We just bought a lacrosse cart for the lacrosse teams, which was really fantastic and great for them. That's coming in, but it's about making sure that we are providing those types of things that give our student athletes a great experience to be able to compete in the GCC and the surrounding areas. So whether that's through improve locker rooms. Those are some things that are on our agenda for next year. Mental health has been a big thing that we've been talking about, making sure that we invest our fundraised dollars into that as well. We just want to make sure that when student athletes come through Strongsville High School, that they feel like they're part of a huge community, part of the sports community, where they can feel like they're able to excel and put in a position to experience great teamwork, sportsmanship, all those kinds of things. So when we go out there and fundraise, we're looking to make sure that we can provide all those types of things for our student athletes to have a better experience once they've left here.
Thank you.
Yeah. Pardon my voice. I'm feeling fine, but we just got back from vacation. So.
Been there.
I have a question
Any other
about
questions?
ticket sales stuff too, that I'm not sure, just because I don't know the specifics of it. Especially the sports that maybe don't sell as many tickets, do we have the option, especially since things were just voted upon, that families are always looking for stuff to do? What can they take the kids to do, especially in the winter months, or, how can I get the kids out of the house? Are we able to do like a promotion kind of thing, like elementary night, where tickets are this price, or if you bring a family, it's this, like, just to get people interested into coming in? Because I can't tell you how many times I see people saying, like, what do I do? It's bad weather outside, or it's this or that, and I want to do something different, or maybe that'll get their kids involved in a sport that they otherwise don't know about. Because I feel like a lot of times it's just not knowing what's going on and what the schedules are.
So for football, we have 5 home games,
Right.
which works out. We have 5 elementary schools. So at each home game, it's an elementary theme night. So for one home game will be Kinzer night, another
Right.
game will be Muraski night. So for those nights, the students will get it. Those students will get in free.
What about, like, because football, I feel like would probably get some of the most ticket sales are generating. What about, like, things that people don't go to often?
So one thing that I've been working with, in fact, I just talked to Dan Faust the other day on this, is doing a lot more like, promotional giveaways.
Yeah, yeah.
So like having like a schedule poster night where like the first 200 fans get a schedule poster,
Right.
Whether that's for basketball, whether that's for hockey.
Right.
We have revamped some of our sports where our cheerleaders are now going to hockey games.
Okay.
Our dance team's going to soccer games. So there's things like that that we're trying to do to increase participation. In working with Mr. Wingler's Leads Group, we are working on a fan app that we're hoping to have up by next year, which is a app that is going to reward students, parents, staff members. If they come to games, they can earn points. Then eventually they can they can exchange those points for spirit wear, stuff like that. So that is in the works. We're hoping that that's going to translate to more spectators at some games.
Because think about people that look at different stuff, and they're like, until they actually experience it, they don't realize that they like it. People that have never seen a hockey game before,
Sure.
and they go to their first hockey game, they're like, oh man, this is really entertaining.
Right.
So,
Yeah, and I know that George and I have also talked about doing some sort of pass system, whether that's a adult pass, a student pass, a family pass, that would allow a lot more families to come to games, especially with the increase in ticket prices. Is there something that we can do to have a family be more affordable at games?
We're also working on a Denny Ziegler bobblehead night. I'm gonna sell out.
The only thing better would be a Cameron Rival bobble.
I was gonna say.
That's a winner.
I don't know, George is.
Don't worry about your transfers. We'll get all the money.
George might give you all a run for your money, too.
I will say, one of the biggest things that I talked with the boosters on too is, I don't know how many of you were involved when the, prior to COVID, the first home football game was always community night. And we talked about bringing that back, inviting all of our local businesses,
Yeah.
sponsors, our Hall of Fame committee, our booster clubs, whatever club wants to be there, in order to get people there, and they can promote their, businesses, their, whatever they want to do, something to bring more people together,
Right.
especially.
Well, I think even like meet and greets with the teams, like the younger kids, the little ones that get to dance with the cheerleaders and stuff, like that is the best thing in the world. Or like, I know some different districts have high school football players that go down to the elementary school and eat lunch with them. And like, you would think that they
Sure.
just had lunch with the president of the United States. And it's like, of course, then they have to go to the game, they have to go support them and watch them. Even like before the game, come get autographs. The high school kids would love to do that, signing autographs.
Is there any other,
Answered your question, Amy.
is there any other questions?
What if you have a middle schooler with an adult-sized head for football?
I said, I have.
I've always had a large head.
We borrowed them from the high school.
Well, we need to give George and Denny and Jason direction tonight. I mean, we've been mulling over this for a while now. I know I've had some extensive conversations with George. I mean, I'm comfortable with increasing the budget for the athletic department. You know, I think the kids, it's important. We have more students in participating. It's all good things.
It's one of the excellent parts of our district too, besides just academics, but the sports and the athletics.
That's a good point.
Mm-hmm.
George, can you remind me what the total ask was?
It's on
Yes.
that one attachment.
So if we go to the 10-year projection,
Ah,
So-
ah,
we're going to go to the high school first. So you might have to follow me then on the second tab. Well, on the first tab, we have tabulated, we went through each sport, looking at the revenues and the expenses for each sport based on
can't
that
even read this.
athletic needs chart and determine an overall budget. And then we also added the items that we pay for in the general fund as part of this budget, so that's where it might look higher. But we also added that that transfer that covered it in there as well to kind of offset it, just to keep all the expenses in one place. So overall, for next school year, the total high school athletic budget, including the rental facilities, would be $351,000. And the transfer to offset the increase would be from the general fund. The additional transfer would be this line 21. So next year would be $100,000. The following year would be $77,000 and $69,000, and then it would increase to $113,000. And the variables each year for the increase is based on the uniform rotations, and then also revenues as well for football. Sometimes we have off cycles based on who our home games are versus our away games. When we're away at Brunswick, Medina, that year we're typically lower because the teams that are coming here don't travel as well as those games as well. So that's why we see the fluctuations. So for high school, it would vary between 100,000 to 77 to possibly 100 and about 120.
So that is the increase, and it varies from year to year?
Yeah, that's for the high school. Then the middle school,
Okay.
same concept.
Because of uniforms and all that.
If we put that,
It would be about 40, the middle school would range between 40, about 45, 50 to 30,000, depending on the year.
if I put that back into there's a lot of numbers here, George. If I
I know. I've looked at these over.
If I put this $100,000 into where our athletic budget is, that's just high school, so what's the middle school?
It'd be an additional 46,
So 146.
Yeah.
Added to our current, correct?
correct?
Our current.
And our current does not also include the mats and things.
The one that's listed on that slide, the comparison doesn't include the rental facilities.
So we're gonna go from near the bottom to near the top, is what the ask is.
Right,
And that's in line with those districts that we're looking at are comparable in size.
correct.
Medina, Brunswick, Menor, Berea. Some of the other ones are
I'll
smaller.
add Menor, you'll see they're at 300.
There's no middle school.
But their
Yeah.
AD and their assistant ADs couldn't give me what their budget was, so I did not include the middle school budget with Menor. So it's at least 300,
Right.
probably 330 to 350.
Okay.
I know this is going the opposite direction, but are we able to run something to see, ever since I saw that Brunswick, the federal free lunch program, one free sport, are we able to see how that would affect us in terms of what that would look like? I don't know, I like how that is.
What is it?
I'd be curious to see the numbers as
I
well.
It
won't
was
be-
something that I was planning on
I wouldn't-
asking.
I wouldn't be able to provide that just because of the confidentiality of the student. So I wouldn't be able to go through the rosters and
Oh,
see who's
So we'd almost have to just do it and then see what happens.
But if you would just say mathematically, if we get 225,000, 20% of our kids are on free and reduced. If you take 20% of that, you're reducing about $50,000. So
That's a good point.
Okay.
that's a basic way you could kind of take a look at it.
Uh-huh.
Good point, thank you.
I'm here for you, George.
Good bobblehead night.
That's right.
Are there any other questions, comments?
So, yeah, the consensus that we're looking for is how to proceed with the budget. Do we want to build our budget based on fundamental needs as we determined, or continue as we currently have been?
If we increase this, because I know there was a lot of, where is it at, the 18 slides? How at the end of the year, we have to like fund the things that, you know.
We would
spent
have
too
to
much
do
on.
a transfer at the end of
Correct.
the year.
And I know a lot of these districts are still doing that, even with their larger budgets, yes? Can we, like, make a commitment to stay within the increased budget and not come back at this time next year and say, well, we still went over? Is there a way to verbally agree to that?
Can you guys live within that? Yeah.
Okay.
And if we're seeing something that's changing throughout the year, we'll keep you updated.
Okay.
I think so-
that kind of fits in.
Yeah, I think what could throw that off is if, for whatever reason, football game, I don't get bad inclement weather and revenues are down, but we might be able to make adjustments. And,
Okay.
yeah, so we'll
That's
continue to
when we're
monitor
gonna
and
start
update.
valeting cars, is
Yeah.
when we lose our football game.
Boosters could give out umbrellas.
Yeah, there you go.
George will carry them.
I'm okay.
It seems like it goes hand in hand with inflation. It's not just asking for money to ask for money for stuff, it's because things are getting more expensive. Believe it or not.
I just want to make sure we keep discussing, you know, we're going to do this,
Yeah.
and like everything else, if it doesn't work, like had the math program not worked, we would have revisited it.
Right.
Same as here. If this for some reason doesn't work, I just want to make sure the conversation's open and we can continue to look at it if necessary.
Agreed.
Agreed.
So moved.
I agree.
All right,
All right,
George, you have your direction. Denny?
all right, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Appreciate it. Thank you guys very much.
Thanks. All right, with that, that concludes my report. And I'll turn it over to, unless there's any other questions. All right, I'll turn it over to Dr. Ibo.
Thank you, George. What I wanted to do tonight is share a high-level overview with the board and our community in terms of our strategic planning process. So we've spoke a lot throughout the year. That was a big focus for us, is engaging with the community and developing a strategic plan. So just as a reminder, we contracted with the Impact Group. The first phase of it was to engage with our stakeholders. So we did focus groups, surveys, individual meetings. We had well over 1,000 respondents to a variety of our engagement opportunities. And all of those survey results were analyzed, put together. I met with our administrative team, the board, and they drafted objectives that aligned to what our internal and external stakeholders were saying needed our attention. Whether that be, hey, you're doing a pretty good job, but let's make it even better, or here's an area of need that we've got to grow in. So the first thing that I want to, and I've shared this in a past parent and staff update, but for any organization, it's important to set the direction, kind of set that North Star of where we're going and what we want to try to achieve. And so our North Star as a district is our model Mustang. That's our portrait of our graduate. It's our commitment, our 13-year commitment to our students of not only what content and academic learning do we want them to have, but what durable skills do we need them to have to apply their learning to be successful in an ever-changing world. And so we wanted that to be a part of our mission. But our purpose is really setting that just cause. It's our why. Why do we exist as an organization? And it's something that we've talked about internally. And so our purpose statement, as we shared, is inspiring and empowering today's learners to build tomorrow's leaders. And so this is not just it's catchy, right? It has a nice little pattern to it. But really the words are important. So inspiring means that we are urging and filling up passion within our kids to move forward and to grow and to do something that is meaningful to them. So that's a part of our job as adult educators, as staff, is to inspire our learners. Empowerment is just that, is giving students the power and the ability to do with what they've learned and put action to that. So those words are very important to us, that we want to build an educational environment that inspires and builds a passion within our kids, and that we empower them to use that so that we can build tomorrow's leaders. And leaders is a key phrase for us, because we talk about organizationally that leadership is not about position or power or title. Leadership is about influence. And every one of our people in our organization has the ability to be a leader. And if we take a look at what do we need tomorrow in our future, we need leaders. And we need people that are influencing our community, our schools, our world in a positive direction. And what we also think about, our just cause, or why we exist as an organization. Even though I talked about kids, you will notice it does not say the word students in there, because this applies to both adults as it does to students. Our job is to inspire and empower today's learners. Our adults in our organization are learners, so that they can continue to lead for our kids and our community. The mission is our what, right? It's our pathway. What are we going to do to make gains and progress to our organizational purpose? So as it shares up there, as a school community, we will design premier educational experiences. And educational experiences does not just mean academics, right? We talked about athletics, and arts are a big part of who we are as an organization to create well-rounded students that develop. And here are our Model Mustang competencies, right? That we want to develop innovative, resilient, collaborative, global, and empowered students who are architects of their learning, equipped to thrive in their future. It's not about our past or our present, but their future, and to be able to adjust to a future that's increasingly changing at a rapid pace. And again, architects of their learning is important. As we look towards where education is and needs to go, we need to allow our students voice and choice and opportunities to have some agency and pathway in their own learning. That doesn't mean that we don't have teachers still directing and teaching, but it's a shared model. We honored one of our teachers here that I would say is much more a facilitator of learning than a director of learning. She's facilitating with her kids. So this sets why do we exist and what are we going to do to achieve that, and that's something that we're going to continue to work to embody through the rest of our strategic plan. So George, if you can click on the Transforming tab. So just to kind of share briefly, one of the things that we took a look at is we came up with all of these different objectives, right? And we kind of said, how did we want to organize this in a way that inspires action? And so we created 4 strategic priorities. The first strategic priority is transforming teaching and learning. And as you could see underneath there, and George, you're fine just to keep it where it is. But we wanted to define what does transforming teaching and learning mean to us as an organization. And so we created a descriptor there, and it says when we transform teaching and learning, we enhance the classroom experience for all kids through the implementation of innovative instructional approaches, structures, and strategies to inspire and empower our learners. So that gives us context to what are we trying to do when we say we want to transform teaching and learning. The other things that we've done is we've taken these objectives and clarified. So if you take a look at objective 1.1, this one is directly related to the Model Mustang work. So trust me, I'm just giving this as an example. We're not going to do this throughout the whole thing. But 1.1 says SES will advance deeper learning through the integration of rigorous content and durable skills by intentionally infusing the competencies ascribed in the Model Mustang into daily classroom practice. So that gives us a big picture view of what are we trying to accomplish in this 3-year strategic plan. The next column that says connections, that's just giving us an anchor to say, hey, those folks that are working on this objective, you also want to pay attention to objective 1.2 and objective 1.4 because although they are distinctly different, they are focused in the same arena that we may want to work and connect some of that work together. The focus column is simply saying, so here's the practical thing that happened. We created a lot of these objectives and spent a lot of time in them around January, February-ish. Then it came March and April came, and we said, what, in February, when we talked about this objective, what were we really focused on accomplishing? Because when you start with big picture, you know, you want to kind of anchor yourself and really, what are we trying to do? So the focus column is, this is more an internal facing document, but it says to us, and Jenny, who's the chair of this one, here's really what I want to accomplish, and here's where the focus is for this year. And then you could see we've assigned chairs and co-chairs, and then George, if you can, scroll to the right there. Yeah, go all the way to the end, a couple more. There you go, that's good. So, you know, the timeline that we've said is, hey, for this one, when do we want to establish baseline? What that's saying in a different way is, what's our current state of implementation of the Model Mustang across the district? Where are we right now? And that's something that Jenny worked on last month. When is she able to take that baseline data, formulate a recommendation, and then ultimately implement with action planning for this upcoming year? So you could see that's something that's in store for this upcoming school year. And we're going to measure the progress towards this objective twice a year. So that's the structure of what we have in place right now. Any questions on that? So I'm not going to go through them in as much detail, but the three other strategic priorities are aligning staff and resources, cultivating culture and climate, and then leveraging funding and facilities. So as you take a look at those four strategic priorities, it covers all aspects of you know, what makes up, components that make up an effective organization. The other thing that we did is we looked at distribution. So we thought it was important. This is not something that I as superintendent or George as treasurer or Jenny as assistant superintendent or any of our directors, this is not just us focused on this. This is a team effort of all of our administrators. You know, we went through a distribution and looked at how many, we kind of set that range of, we want people at least involved in two items, but no more than 5. Depending on their level, and building folks we kept at 4. So you could see the breakdown of people that are chairs and co-chairs to help support the work that we're doing. And the last thing is the Gantt chart. So George, if you want to click on that tab. The Gantt chart is just a visual way that color codes, like for example, for that one I gave you, dark orange, that says in May of 2023, we need to have baseline done. In June, we need the recommendation. The dashes are a little gap month. And in August, we're going to go. That's when we're going to implement. And then when it turns to light orange, you could see that's when we're doing the work, and the measurement semi-annually is twice a year. So what this helped us to do is when we said, hey, we want to start this in this year or this month, this helped us visually say, were we too overloaded in certain years and had too much stuff going on to space it out? And so we've adjusted a lot throughout the past few months to get it into a place where, at least starting out, we feel like it's doable and practical to implement. So to summarize, we are in a very good place in terms of, here's the objectives we want to focus on. Here's when we're going to do the work. Here's who's going to lead the work. And now what we'll be doing is, of those that are selected in that 2023-24 school year, we will now be working on actually action planning those items. What specifically are we going to do to help realize our objective to work towards our mission and organizational purpose? The last thing that's happening is something that the impact group is working on. Part of what is still, the work that they're still doing is they are taking this, like I said, this is more of an internal working document, but they are taking this and they are creating a variety of graphic designed internal facing and external facing documents. So in the next few weeks, we'll have on our website, here are all of our strategic priorities and the related objectives. What I hope is people read that, they will see, oh, here's some feedback I gave to the district, and here's where it's represented in one of the objectives. That was one of the goals we had, that, you know, when we saw those themes, whether it was internal from staff or external from parents or community members, that it's represented in our plan. So we'll have an outward-facing one that's just going to share the strategic priorities and objectives. We'll have an internal-facing one that gives a little more detail, and then we'll have kind of a one-pager graphic that gives a big-picture overview of our focus over the next 3 years. And then as we start to launch this in the coming months, as we talk about those semi-annual and annual measurements, then we'll be able to report to the board progress towards the objectives that are in place for this school year. So that's the high-level overview I wanted to share with the board. Any feedback or questions that you have on where we're at with the strategic planning process? Okay, well, sure.
So I'm
No,
reading
that's
this
okay.
stuff. I see lots of measure in July of 20, is that July 24?
Correct,
Okay.
yes.
All right, never mind.
Yeah.
I was
Okay.
really excited to get an update.
Next month. Yes. Yes, no, next year. All right. Any other questions? Okay, well, I'll keep the board updated as we progress through. Moving on to other items under my item or section of the agenda, we have nothing under business services. We do have 2 items for your consideration under curriculum. The first is an overnight trip for varsity hockey team. So be it resolved upon my recommendation that permission be granted to Strongsville High School varsity team to attend a high school summer camp June 23rd through 25th at Bowling Green State University. Transportation to the camp will be via school bus, and transportation from the camp will be provided by parents. Expenses will be paid by participating students. The second one is a basketball camp, so be it resolved upon my recommendation that permission be granted to the Strongsville High School boys varsity and JV basketball teams to attend overnight camp at the University of Findlay, June 29th through 30th. Transportation will be via school bus, and expenses will be paid by the participating students. Any questions on curriculum? Nothing for student services for this meeting, so next I'll turn it over to Jenny for the human resource report.
Thank you. I have the following items for your consideration under Human Resources this evening. We have the resignation of an resignation of an administrator, Lauren Scotta, our gifted and testing coordinator, has gotten a new position, so we wish her well in her new role. Under 2, we have the resignation of a certificated staff member. Under 3, resignations for non-certificated staff member. Under 4, retirement for certificated staff. Under 5, we have several appointments for certificated staff. I would like to introduce Ethan Diaz. He's in the audience here. He's been patiently waiting for his name to be read here. He's a new MI intervention specialist at Sarar, I believe. He's going to be at Sarar. So we're thrilled to have him on board and thrilled to have all of our other new hires. And it's all coming together as we continue the interviewing process. So thank you for being here.
Welcome.
Congratulations. Under E6, appointments for non-certificated staff. Under 7, appointment for certificated athletic supplemental contract. Under 8, appointment for home instruction tutor. 9, additional time for non-certificated staff. 10, changes in status for certificated staff full-time equivalents. 11, changes in status for non-certificated staff. 12, contract recommendations for certificated continuing contract. 13, contract recommendation for non-certificated staff. And finally, under 14, we do have one revision to the agenda on May 25th for appointments under non-certificated athletic supplemental contracts. And that concludes my report.
Any questions for Jenny? Next up, we have the technology report. Dave, you want to come up, or you want me to? Okay. This is for our Google Workspace, so be it resolved upon my recommendation that the Board of Education approves entering into a 3-year annual pay agreement with CDW Education for the purchase of Google Workspace for Education Plus. The software provides district collaboration tools, which include Gmail, Calendar, Meet, Chat, Drive, and storage, doc sheets, slides, forms, sites, and an admin panel and vault for managing users and services. The annual cost is $4.28 per student. Based on an active student enrollment of 5670, the annual cost will be $24,267.60. An additional fee of $428 per student will be assessed for students exceeding the original enrollment number. Any questions for me that I can pass on to Dave?
How's that changed from years past? I know you addressed it.
So years ago, when Google started doing Google for Workspace, or back then it was just like Google Drive, it was a free service to schools. And then around the pandemic, they started creating these structures and these tiers. Previously, just as our last contract with Google Workspace was around $10,000, but that was done by a per teacher or per educator account. The new format is now per student, and so it's now, almost 2.5 times what we originally paid, just like last year when it was the per educator. But what is nice is we get the features that come with the premium one that we pay for, increased storage, increased number of participants in Google Meets, or outside entities or domains are now allowed to come into our meets. So if we have some type of a virtual meeting that Dr. Ryba holds, we can now invite people from outside our domain to participate with that. We do have, live streaming capabilities with Google as well, so if we needed to have some type of thing, if a Boxcast went down, we could still have a live stream of some event going on. But also has some of our special features our teachers use, like originality reports, the rubrics within Google Classroom, and something they added this year was the tie-ins between extensions in Google Classrooms like Pear Deck. Without this purchase, teachers would have to provide another code or another site for students to go into a Pear Deck. This allows us to integrate the code directly into the classroom so the kids can just click on a link from there and have a more direct access.
Great, thank you, Dave. With that, that concludes my report.
Thank you, Dr. Ryba. Next, we have the adoption of the consent calendar. Action by the Board of Education in adoption of consent calendar at this point of the agenda means that all items appearing in this agenda denoted as type-action consent, which items constitute the consent calendar, are adopted by one single motion unless a member of the board or superintendent requests that such items be removed from the consent calendar and voted upon separately. Do we have anything that needs to be removed? Hearing none, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion by Ms. Stavcek, second by Mrs. Kilbane. George, can you take the roll?
Ms. Stavcek?
Yes.
Ms. Cobain?
Yes.
Mrs. Hausum?
Yes.
Mrs. Bissell?
Yes.
Motion passes. Next is Board of Education miscellaneous or other. Do we have any other? No other? We do have need for executive session to discuss.
To review negotiations or bargaining sessions with public employees concerning their compensation or other terms and conditions of their employment, and to consider the employment of a public employee.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion by Ms. Stavcek, second by Mrs. Kilbane. George, can you take the roll?
Ms. Stavcek?
Yes.
Mrs. Cobain?
Yes.
Mrs. Hausum?
Yes.
Mrs. Bissell?
Yes.
Motion passes. We will enter into executive session at approximately 8:50. We don't see any need to come back into public session. So everyone, please have a great night. Thank you.